Tottenham have publicly acknowledged that their current squad is not yet strong enough to compete consistently at the highest level, with Chief Executive Vinay Venkatesham admitting the club must add quality, experience and leadership, while working to repair a fractured relationship with supporters. Writing in the matchday programme ahead of Saturday's Premier League clash with West Ham, Venkatesham struck an unusually candid tone, outlining both the club's recruitment priorities and the wider cultural reset underway in North London. "We believe in our current squad, but must add more quality, experience and leadership to compete consistently at the highest level," Venkatesham wrote. "Doing so requires a more proactive approach to recruitment, alongside a wage structure that supports our ambition." The comments arrive at a sensitive moment. Spurs sit 14th in the Premier League, protests are planned by supporter group Change for Tottenham, and patience around the club's long-term project is wearing thin. Venkatesham confirmed Tottenham are actively looking to strengthen during the January window, while stressing that discipline, not desperation, will guide decision-making. "We are fully focused on strengthening the squad in January, where the right opportunities exist," he said. "But we recognise that the most significant player trading activity typically comes in summer windows. The emphasis," he insisted, "is on signing players who genuinely move us forward, rather than short-term fixes that undermine financial sustainability." He also addressed outgoings, making clear that decisive sales are part of the club's strategy. "Player trading's also about knowing when to sell and being decisive about moving players on who are not part of our future," Venkatesham added. "Despite common belief, we are not immune to financial fair play rules. That philosophy has already been reflected in recent departures and the club's refusal to chase stopgap, attacking options despite mounting injuries. Tottenham's intent to professionalise recruitment has been underlined by the appointment of Rafi Moorson from City Football Group as Director of Football Operations. He will report into Sporting Director Johan Langer and oversee player transactions once he formally joins later this year. The move signals a shift towards a more integrated, data-driven approach and an admission that past structures have not delivered consistent results. Perhaps most striking was Venkatesham's acknowledgement of the growing disconnect between club and supporters. "We know there is distance between the club and our supporters, and we are committed to rebuilding that connection," he said. Initiatives such as the new Son Heung-min mural, ticketing changes, a trial singing section, and closer engagement with the fan advisory board were highlighted, alongside a commitment to improving access for younger fans through revised concession policies. The message was clear. Tottenham know trust has eroded, and they know it must be earned back. Head coach Thomas Frank is acutely aware that words alone will not calm discontent. "Connecting is key," Frank admitted. "But I also know in football there is one way of connecting, and that is winning." Despite protests and pressure, Frank's position remains secure, with Venkatesham publicly backing the Dane and pointing to January's arrivals as proof of support. Conor Gallagher's £34.7 million signing and the appointment of John Heitinga as assistant coach are seen internally as signs of long-term commitment rather than short-term appeasement. "I think it's a very good sign," Frank said, "to sign a quality player like Conor in January, and to bring in John Heitinga that shows belief in the project, even if from the outside it doesn't look smooth." Frank acknowledged results must improve, but insisted performances are trending in the right direction. Tottenham's attacking problems have been compounded by Richarlison's latest setback. The Brazilian will miss up to 7 weeks with a hamstring injury, sustained in the FA Cup defeat to Aston Villa. Despite that, Frank has ruled out panic buying. "It can't only be for the next 4 months," he said. "We need to think bigger picture." Of course, we know we are a few offensive players down. Dominic Solanke has returned from injury, but with Mohamed Kudus sidelined and Brennan Johnson sold earlier this month, Spurs remain light in forward areas, by choice as much as circumstance. Tottenham have finally said out loud what many supporters have believed for years: the squad lacks leadership, experience and edge. The rhetoric is encouraging, the structural changes make sense, the backing of Thomas Frank appears genuine, but none of it will matter without results. Fans do not reconnect through murals, statements or strategy documents. They reconnect through performances, progress and proof. January is not about saving Tottenham's season. It is about proving the club has learned from its mistakes and is serious about fixing them. Tottenham's January business is far from complete. The arrival of Conor Gallagher from Atletico Madrid in a £34.7 million deal earlier this week was an important statement, one that saw Spurs beat off competition from Aston Villa, but it has not solved the deeper issues confronting Thomas Frank midway through a turbulent campaign. Gallagher's signing strengthens the midfield and injects leadership, intensity, and Premier League experience. But it also underlines a wider truth. Tottenham are still short, particularly in attack, and the club knows it. That urgency has only grown following long-term injuries to Richarlison and Mohamed Kudus, coupled with the sale of Brennan Johnson to Crystal Palace earlier this month. Those exits and absences have stripped Spurs of pace, penetration and depth in the final third, leaving Frank with limited options as fixtures pile up. Behind the scenes, structural change continues. Shortly after Gallagher's arrival was confirmed, Tottenham announced that John Heitinga would join the coaching staff as Frank's assistant, following his spell as Ajax head coach. It is another sign of a club attempting to stabilise itself both on and off the pitch. But recruitment, not reshuffling, remains the priority. Tottenham's January churn has been relentless. Damola Ajayi has joined Bromley, Jamie Donnelly has moved to Oxford United, Mana Solomon has signed for Fiorentina, Kota Takai has gone to Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Yang Min Hyuk has completed a switch from Portsmouth to Coventry City. Add Brennan Johnson's £35 million move to Crystal Palace, and the scale of turnover becomes clear. The exits have freed space in the squad, but they have also raised expectations that replacements will follow. A deal has already been secured for Brazilian left-back Sousa from Santos pending a work permit, yet defensive depth is not Spurs' most pressing concern. Goals are. Much of the early January speculation centred on Manchester City winger Savinho. But that trail has cooled rapidly following the Brazilian's recent injury setback. Instead, attention has shifted towards another City attacker, struggling for minutes under Pep Guardiola, Omar Marmush. According to Turkish journalist Kagatay Kelik, Spurs are among the clubs monitoring Marmush's situation, alongside Aston Villa and Galatasaray. The 25-year-old Egypt international is reportedly only willing to leave City on loan and prioritises staying in England. Tottenham and Aston Villa are interested, Celik said. Marmush's priority is to stay in England. He is only considering leaving Manchester City on loan. Marmush has played just 389 minutes this season, registering 1 goal and 1 assist after arriving from Eintracht Frankfurt for £59 million last January. For a player of his profile, that lack of involvement is glaring and potentially exploitable. From Spurs' perspective, a loan deal would make sense: low risk, immediate cover, and an attacker accustomed to Premier League tempo. Tottenham are also reported to be among 6 Premier League clubs tracking Wolves forward Jurgen Strand Larsen. Team Talk claims Spurs, Newcastle United, Everton, Nottingham Forest, West Ham and Leeds United are all monitoring the 25-year-old, though The Athletic stresses that no formal offer has been submitted. Strand Larsen's numbers are not flattering. 6 goals in 23 appearances this season, only one of them in the Premier League, tell the story of a striker short on confidence and service. This would not be a glamour signing, it would be a calculated gamble. And that matters. Spurs are not shopping for names, they are shopping for solutions. Gallagher's arrival was necessary, it was not sufficient. Tottenham's squad has been thinned aggressively, whether by design or circumstance, and the attacking injuries have exposed a lack of margin for error. Frank has spoken repeatedly about balancing short-term needs with long-term vision. Now is the moment that philosophy is tested. A loan move for a City fringe player like Marmush makes strategic sense. A permanent gamble on a striker like Strand Larsen carries more risk. What Spurs cannot afford is inactivity. This January window will not define Tottenham's identity, but it may decide whether their season drifts or stabilises. And right now, standing still is the one option they simply do not have.